All right.
I'm ready when you are.
Let's do it.
This week on Let's Talk Texas, the 2020 election cycle is heating up as former President Obama begins to criticize Republican leadership across the country during the coronavirus response. Meanwhile, Democrat policies are pushing more and more Californians to publicly talk about moving to Texas. All that plus the RPT convention, a failed stimulus bill, and a quick look at the runoff elections here in Texas.
This is the issue of this election.
Texas isn't great just by chance.
When you overtax, overregulate, and overlitigate, guess what? They're going to look for places to go.
The classic question in politics: are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? It's Texas.
We will never give up Texas!
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All right, welcome to Let's Talk Texas, the live and in-person edition. Chairman James Dickey, good to see you in the flesh, sir. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, and you are right. It is so good to see you too, and to see the folks that we have in the office today. We are leading the way, setting the example for starting to safely reopen Texas, and I am so looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we got some big numbers to talk about here in a bit, but first we got a couple of shout outs to get to. Chairman, who are we giving some love to this week?
Well, one of my favorite people, TFRW member Mary Heffernan. She was one of the top volunteer callers to help Mike Garcia win in California. She was recognized by the National Federation of Republican Women for what an amazing job she did. And to all of our volunteers who stepped up to make calls during this coronavirus pandemic, it has been amazing. Saturday was also Armed Forces Day. Thank you to the Armed Forces for their immense sacrifices in defense of our freedom, and to the folks who raised millions in charitable dollars for driving relief.
Yeah, I mean, RPT has shown that we are not going to let this coronavirus get in our way. Republicans have shown that they are ready to take the fight wherever it is, even to deep blue California, to flip that seat. Chairman, I mean, before we get into our regular show, I got to kind of talk to you about this a little bit. I mean, what does it say for Republicans? Should they feel energized watching these two special elections flip?
They absolutely should. I mean, and to give some perspective for it, this is the first Democrat seat that Republicans have been able to flip to Republican from Democrat in California in 22 years. Now, that's not a sign of momentum and progress. I don't know what is. And the reality is, mainstream media, they're not going to promote this. You know, the minute it's over and they have lost, they're gonna bury it. They're gonna memory hole it, just like they did Texas House District 28, where we took a district that Senator Cruz had only won by 3%. Our last rep there had only won by 8. We not only beat them, but we doubled the margin of victory, and you've never heard another word about it.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the response here in Texas, from what I've heard from reports, Texas Democrats are starting to maybe refocus a little and pull in their goals as they look to trying to flip the Texas House this cycle. So we'll have plenty more to talk about that here in a bit, but lots to get to this week, Chairman. First and foremost, President Obama is back in the spotlight. He threw some shade toward President Trump over the weekend. And I say he threw shade because he didn't name him directly. Right. He kind of took a broad swipe at Republican leadership across the board. What do you make of this message, and what do you think voters should be thinking as President Obama begins to break centuries of tradition of former presidents not criticizing their predecessors?
You know, it's so easy for people on the sidelines to criticize others, and President Trump and the White House, they have done such an amazing job. And in this unprecedented fight, they have done a really comprehensive, aggressive, whole of America, data-driven approach that started back in January. And President Trump has worked with our governors to safely reopen. The president's shown a lot of leadership and has worked with others to make sure we have that leadership done. And, President Obama, President Obama should be explaining how and why he abused the power he had as presidency after his opponent won, and unleashing the IRS and the FBI and intelligence agencies on his opponents. Meanwhile, the president's doing the right thing. He's staying focused on really reopening the United States safely and successfully. He's led the largest national mobilization since World War II to deliver the personal protection equipment that we all need, to work on vaccine discovery and invention and testing, to improve testing for all of the to improve our knowledge and our experience and our ability to manage this. The president has shown really strong leadership, and President Obama, not surprisingly, doesn't appreciate the way he's been shown up, but he has.
Yeah, I actually found out the background on that. Turns out Hollywood was producing that segment, and Obama was going to get to it, but they Oscared him and they played him off before he got a chance to, cop to all the things all the strings he was pulling in the Michael Flynn stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm sure it was right on the tip of his tongue.
But I mean, obviously that seems like a convenient time for President Obama to come back. He stayed silent all the way through the primary process, even like. It seemed like it was a begrudging endorsement of Joe Biden.
It clearly was, and for obvious reason. But yeah, how much of a self-indictment is it that your own vice president didn't earn your endorsement early? But clearly, I mean, he's stepping up now in the hopes that he'll bring some life back into the Biden campaign, and the hopes that he'll draw some attention away from the really reprehensible behavior of his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, the Biden campaign has been trying desperately to keep this circus alive. I think they were greatly relieved when the coronavirus response picked up, because it allowed them to kind of push Bernie Sanders to the side. And then as soon as he got out of the race, it's kind of like, well, what are we going to talk about here? We're just going to bring Hillary back out. We're going to do this town hall where you can't tell if Biden's fallen asleep or what's really going on there. And Hillary isn't doing much to energize either. I mean, as someone who fancies himself a speechwriter, these are the opportunities you have to inspire the base, get them pumped up. And from everything I've seen, I watch these things. I watch the Biden town halls. I try to tune in when there are local Democrat things, and I don't see anything from either of these camps, from state Democrats or the Biden campaign, that is leading toward this so-called revolution that the Democrats are claiming is going to happen in 2020.
Yeah, no. And comparatively, there is so much grassroots excitement for President Trump on our side, and for winning all the way down the ballot. And we've really taken advantage of that. I just checked in with the team. We did 225,000 phone calls last week, not last month, last week.
225,000 in a week. That does not sound like a party that is resting on its laurels this cycle.
We are not. We are doing the hard work we need to do. And it is that, with the excitement for President Trump, is going to make the difference.
Yeah. Meanwhile, not surprisingly, Texas is the darling of discussion right now among tech people, even some in the celebrity class. I don't know if you consider Joe Rogan a celebrity, but he certainly has an effect on the culture. So while Obama is criticizing, Republicans through veiled swipes, the Democrat policies are forcing folks like Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, to start having these public discussions about possibly moving to Texas. I mean, what do you make of this? What should Texans be thinking right now as the conversation about, hey, Texas is great. We're opening the doors. We're business friendly. We want you to make your own decisions for your life. It's great. We love that we live here, but now we're a beacon of change, and people are going to start flocking here. Should we be excited? Should we be worried? What should we be thinking right now?
Well, people have been flocking here. Republicans only took over the Texas House 16 years ago. And for 15 years in a row, we've been named the best best state in the country to do business. And that has attracted people. So we have had people moving here by the millions. One of the points I like to make to folks is from 2012 to 2018, we registered more new voters in Texas than there are registered voters in Colorado and 25 other states.
Holy cow.
That's how much we are growing. And that's just registered voters. That doesn't count kids. It's just our growth is amazing, and our growth is amazing because our policies work. And it's becoming more and more obvious as the distance between successfully managed Republican conservative states and disasters led by Democrats has become more and more obvious, so obvious that Nancy Pelosi felt the need to put a giant Democrat state bailout in this latest, supposedly coronavirus stimulus. It had nothing to do with coronavirus. It just it was a giant Democrat wish list.
Yeah. And she's been trying to sneak that in this entire time, right? And using various tactics to allow Congress to vote on these things without much time to vet it. Fortunately, the president has been on to that and let us know that is dead on arrival. But back here in Texas, we're waiting for the governor's announcement later today. Obviously, he's already set the stage for more businesses to open up. And that conversation is being had about the two types of leadership, right? I'm not a history expert by any means, right? I tried to read as much as possible. I did okay in college, right? But this seems like a bizarre world where Democrats are playing out the very things they tried to attack Republicans for, right?
Democrats are masters at projection, right? They will say you are racist when they are the ones who did Jim Crow.
Yeah,
they will say you are racist when they are the ones who fought against Reconstruction and votes for Black citizens. In fact, last week I want to give a shout out. Norris Wright Cuny. We celebrated his birthday. He was one of my predecessors, one of the earliest chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. He was an influential Black conservative businessman who helped usher in an age in which we got dozens of Texas House members and U.S. congressmen who were Black Republicans from Texas. We have the history to be proud of, and the Democrats hate that. And they every day try to project onto us the hate that's in their heart. And the best thing we can do is follow Reagan's example and be happy warriors and be out there living out our lives. Every day we've got people coming over, and our president is a big part of that. When he was bold enough to say, what do you have to lose? It mattered, and it is having an impact.
Yeah, I was reading Ben Shapiro over on the Daily Wire had put out a column basically calling this the red pill moment. I don't know if you follow the internet.
Yes, and in fact, Elon posted a tweet this weekend that said, he has taken the red pill.
Exactly.
And yes, I think that is a perfectly fitting analogy. I think it's convenient that it was the red pill that opened you up to reality. And that's it. The Democrats have been trying to gaslight folks for decades. They've been trying to project their evil onto the opposition. It is up to us to do the hard work. We know we cannot count on the mainstream media. This is why we bumped up all our communications efforts. It's why we have this great podcast. So we can talk directly to people.
Exactly. And we feel the response from you guys, and we appreciate you listening, tuning in live. I guess my final question on this topic is, what should Republicans be doing now that we are bringing so many new people into the fold? How do we create new fellowship with all of these people who have woken up to what the Democrat agenda really is, which is bigger government, more control of your life? How do we as Republicans build a bond with these new folks?
So as you encounter folks, friends and neighbors and family members who say, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I can't believe this, but I've been wrong. I want to get involved. First of all, be warm and welcoming and supportive. That is the most important thing we can do. Second of all, get them plugged in. One of the keys in business and the keys in politics, never let a warm lead go cold. If someone raises their hand, find a way to get them in. And right now is a perfect time to do that. We got two big ways you can get people involved. The first is volunteer engagement project. 10K for 10R. We need to be registering new Texas Republicans. We have already registered 85,000 of our 100,000 goal, but we need more volunteers. We've got thousands, but we need more. Our goal is 10,000 volunteers. That's where the 10K comes from. And to register 10 new Republicans apiece. And every day I talk to a new volunteer who's doing the project and working on it and making progress. And that's how we've gotten to that 85,000. All you have to do is text 10K, 10K to the number 72,000. We'll get signed up, or go to texasgop.org, fill out the form there. So that's a great way. Anyone can get involved. It takes nothing more than getting on the phone, signing up, then getting on the phone to talk to 10 prospective folks who we are 90% sure are Republican and we are 90% sure are not yet registered to vote in Texas. Talk to them. That's a great way anybody can get involved. But also right now, we have begun our process towards convention. And what is great about conventions, convention was literally the thing that got me hooked on being a Texas Republican. I walked into that polling place. I cast my vote like I had donated money every now and then. I tried to help a candidate or two now and then. But I had somebody after I cast a vote say, hey, why don't you stick around? We're going to have a precinct convention. And I sat there in the precinct convention and I listened to the resolutions people were proposing, and I heard them talk about the chance to make change. And I saw firsthand how the Texas Republican Party, more than any other organization, lets grassroots folks who have never before been involved, who don't have to be in a smoke-filled back room, they can make real change. And I've seen it firsthand. It is one of the things that makes us powerful, and it is a phenomenal way to get people involved. So find out from your county party, your county party's website, your county party chair. Find out when your conventions are going to be. If you've got somebody who wants to get involved, bring them with you to the county convention or the Senate district convention. It is a fantastic way to get people involved.
Yeah, and go all the way to state convention. You know, the thing that I learned the first time I went to a state convention was it gave me a great understanding in the state Senate district of what that looked like and what that state senator has to deal with in terms of dynamics of, different economic backgrounds, different industries across the board, especially, I originally came from SD24, Senator Buckingham's district. And that's a huge senatorial district.
Yes. 17 counties from Travis County up to Abilene.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that most people don't realize is some of these state Senate districts are as big as congressional districts.
Well, and actually they're bigger because we have 31 state Senate districts. We have 36 congressmen, and we're about to have 39 congressmen. So we'll have 39 congressmen, 31 senators, the state senators who are paid a grand total of $600 a month.
Yeah, raking it
in. Serve a broader group than a U.S. congressman, and in Texas and in most other states. But Saturday was 100 days to the national convention.
Yep.
The national convention, we are going to nominate President Trump, and we are going to head to victory in November. That is critical that we do that in person. One of the things they need for us to set the example and set the way for that. Well, we are 59 days from when we are going to have our convention in Houston, and we have been doing all of the work we need to do to make sure we can safely have that convention in Houston in person. We cannot wait. It is going to be amazing. And those local county and senatorial conventions are such an important step towards that state convention.
And registration opens Tuesday for state convention, right?
Tomorrow we'll reopen registration, and then we'll have one last round of registration in mid-June. But if like me, you are convinced you want to be at the state convention, by all means, go ahead and register tomorrow. Save yourself a really great hotel room.
Yeah.
Be right there. It is going to be so much fun. It's going to be jam-packed with great events, but we are not going to be jam-packed packed in. We have been talking to the convention center about how to safely space out. They've given us a bunch of extra space so that we can do that. We are working on what the plans are to make sure we can space out in our senatorial district, our county conventions. I had a call Saturday with the county chairs and temporary Senate county conventions all over the state to let them know, about some rule changes we made to make it easier for them to have a bigger space. We're going to have hand sanitizer stations. We're going to encourage people, if you would like to protect yourself or to protect others, to wear a mask, by all means do. In fact, we've got some really cool RPT masks and some Texas flag masks that are available for donation. It's a fantastic way to show some great spirit while you're also being thoughtful of others around you that may be higher in risk. And so, or if you just don't like, spitting.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have a problem when you're talking to someone and it just comes out, it will save you a lot of embarrassment. But you're also fashionable. You actually got one right there, right? Go ahead and show everyone on the live stream.
So I love this one. This one has our elephant just like off the seal. I love this one. We've got a really cool come and take it one that's coming out with the state of Texas on it, because and we mean it in the same sense the Gonzales flag means it. We dare you to try.
Yeah. So anything else that people should know for either state convention or national convention, just so they can be making their checklists?
The biggest thing, keep an eye out for the registration. Go ahead and register, get signed up. Make sure you follow along on your county party's website or Facebook page so that you know when those conventions are. That is critical. Next step is absolutely the right things to do. And we are on our way to leading by example on safely reopening.
So earlier you had mentioned Nancy Pelosi putting up a how much was it? $3 trillion
Yes.
For this Democrat wish list. I guess she was scrolling through Amazon Legislate and was just adding things to her cart. American people footing the bill. It's okay.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about this stimulus bill, and can you confirm that the president has promised us this thing is dead on arrival?
He has 100% promise, and so has the Senate. So the U.S. Senate and the president, thank God, we control both those. That is so important. That's what we need to keep in mind for November, and we need to win back some congressional seats in November, just like we did in the specials. Not only is there another massive price tag, right? The Democrats never met other people's money they weren't excited about spending. Not only is there a huge price tag, but there's so much stuff in there that makes it obvious that they haven't. It's not at all about actually dealing with everyday Americans and their problems. For example, they make it illegal for any state to prevent 100% mail-in ballots. They make it. They require stimulus checks for illegal immigrants. They require the release of quite a few federal prison inmates. Obviously not about protecting or helping struggling Americans. And thankfully, to show just how offensive it is, they didn't even run it through committee. This is all, Nancy Pelosi is being as tyrannical and as controlling as anyone she's ever claimed. Again, just another case of projection. Not a bit of Republican support. Even Democrats having a tough time. You have not heard a single Texas Democrat congressman talk about how great this bill is, because it's outrageous. And yet, that's what Speaker Pelosi and her cohorts are holding the American people hostage on. That they don't want to release any actual aid without them getting their wish list. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, and some 14 Democrats voted against the bill in Congress, I believe. So clearly there is not consensus across the board. Silence from the Texas Democrats in the congressional delegation, I think, speaks more volumes to that. But even more to the point, we have a 10th Amendment that gives the states the powers to oversee these types of things,
Right.
And, further backing that up, California just voted to officially make itself a mail-in ballot election, right?
Well, yeah. Ironically, that same governor who pushed that through, and that same legislature that pushed that through in the special election, they went ahead and opened a single in-person polling place in the most Democrat part of that special election area.
Wow.
Purely coincidentally, I'm quite sure.
Yep. Yeah.
And so now, fortunately, it wasn't enough. So one of the things I talked to the team about is, hey, we have got to fight for voter integrity and voter defense.
Yep.
We've got to make sure we've got election integrity and voter defense. But we also have to win greater than the margin of fraud. Because
that's an unknown quotient actually in political math,
and it varies by area. But yeah, the Democrats have shown there's no election they aren't interested in taking if they can't win it.
Yeah, and it's interesting for them to just do across the board mail-in ballot when they already have it. Oregon has it. Washington State has it. I mean, this is something that voters there are already used to. You know,
they are. And the interesting thing is, all sorts of research has shown that 100% mail-in ballots doesn't actually increase participation. So the actual Democrat, the public claim for why they do this is actually completely irrelevant. On the other hand, honest Democrat election officials with a lot of experience dealing with this will tell you and have said publicly that mail-in ballots are the most susceptible, not just to fraud, but to just plain error. And, we all remember hanging chads. Now imagine a few 100,000 of those where you're trying to decipher somebody's handwriting.
Yeah, and plus the burden it places on the individual counties that are having to go through and collect these and go through the process. I mean, I've sat there and monitored a ballot board before during an election as they go through and they verify whether or not a signature is good, if this ballot counts, if it doesn't, this person's registered. It's a tedious process. And so while you have I think Democrats are just grasping for anything, right? Because they claim they want mail-in ballot, they want electronic voter registration, they want all of these things that they claim make things easier. But at the end of the day, personal responsibility, a chief tenet of Republican values is what makes this state continue to work. It's what makes our country continue to work. The people who show up are the ones who decide. So whether you give a mail-in ballot or you go in person, at the end of the day, the people's own free will is what it's going to decide. And I think that's what upsets Democrats the most, right?
Oh, absolutely. But not only that, this is unfortunately a continuation of their long, ugly history of voter disenfranchisement, right? They were the ones who pushed for Jim Crow. They were the ones who did poll taxes. They were the ones who tried to prevent the spread of the vote in the United States to women, to minorities. They have consistently pushed against that, push for voter disenfranchisement. And think about this. They actually wanted mail-in ballots to be mailed out to people who hadn't even asked for mail-in ballots. Now, what could possibly be the risk of, say, millions of ballots that would be counted if they were returned being out there in the postal system and mailboxes all over the country? And in fact, over the last 10 years, over 10 million ballots that were sent out have just disappeared. Now, what could possibly be wrong if we have millions of ballots that could be mishandled, misappropriated, miscontrolled? There's nothing more secure. We value your vote so much. There's nothing more secure than you going in, placing your votes, verifying your votes, and knowing that it is submitted and safely in the hands of election officials, not God knows where, who knows when.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Texas has plenty of safeguards in place that would allow for voters to go in, socially distance themselves, and have plenty of time to do that. Which brings us to our last topic, the runoff campaigns. It was recently announced that they are going to extend early voting for an additional week. Typically in these special elections or runoffs, you get 1 week of early voting, which is still more generous than places like Pennsylvania, where you have election day only, right? How are they going to deal with that, right? Like, it's a side tangential question, but when you think about that process, these states that are clamoring for mail-in ballots, do you think they even consider, well, what if we had a longer period in which to vote where people could spread out the amount of time.
Right. And that's one of the points I make. And this is why a national thing just doesn't make any sense. Texas already makes it easier for people to vote. We have a very big, no excuse, no reason necessary time frame for casting your vote. And frankly, if the average Texan can figure out how to go buy groceries safely, and we've all already seen how you do that, we can also figure out how to cast a vote safely. And so we will know how to do it. The government doesn't even have to invent this. They can just look at what's already happening every day around them and copy it. The governor's team and the Secretary of State, they've doubled the amount of early voting. This is a great time to test it because primary runoff typically has very low turnout. So we'll be able to see how did it go and how long did it take and what kind of feedback did we have. But we've also seen Wisconsin, after all this happened, they went ahead and had their primary vote, had it in person, had not had time to make dramatic changes, and saw no increase in their deaths. So we've already got experience to say that's not really a problem. And the group most at risk, according to the last study we saw in Texas, 76% of the deaths were from coronavirus were people 65 and over. And everyone 65 and over in Texas already has a right to request a mail-in ballot.
Yeah.
In fact, we do major initiatives to mail those people notice to let them know they have the right to do that. And most still prefer not to. They still prefer to go vote in person.
Well, and let's get a little bit into the weeds on that specific thing, because there's so much conversation about mail-in ballot. What is it? You know, people just easily assume, oh, I would love to get my ballot mailed to me. Then I don't have to worry about where I'm going, right? But through this process in the state of Texas, you have to first send in an application for ballot by mail. That is the first step of integrity, correct?
Right. Because they want to be sure we don't just want a ballot out there wandering around. They want to be sure that you want a ballot. They also want to know that you're going to be ready for it and you're expecting it. So yes, you send in an application. One of the things you do when you do that is you sign it to say, yes, this is me. And I am the voter on the rolls and I would like you to send me my ballot, which for obvious reason is an important step to validate. So yes, I'm not only John Smith, but I'm this John Smith at this address on the voter roll. You send in your application, they validate that in fact there is a John Smith on the voter roll at that address. They send you the ballot, and this is a live valid ballot, right? It's got every race on it, every choice on it. You make your choices and then you sign the outside envelope saying this is my vote. This is me. I have completed these votes that are inside this envelope. You sign that, you mail that back in. Well, there is a group of people who compare the signatures to make sure that it's not patently obvious that someone else filled out your ballot, because that would be them stealing your vote, which would be a giant problem. And so they make sure no one has stolen your vote, that it is in fact your vote that's going to get counted. Then they pull it out and then they have to read your vote and count them as done. And the process is done in such a way that once they validate that, this is a ballot they do want to count, they set aside the identifying info. So it stays a secret ballot. But it is a validated ballot. But then they have to make sure they get your votes right. And that's another step, which is why, mail-in ballots are not a panacea, quite the opposite. They are a process that we've got a lot of experience managing, but it is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And those ballot boards are made up of private citizens. It's not managed by either of the parties. It is the local election administrators who oversee that process as far as it goes with the ballot board. And maybe we'll have a recount episode down the line, but let's go ahead and get back to these runoffs.
Sure.
July 14th is the election day, correct? And I believe, was it June 29th here is when early voting will start. So, there's a variety of races that are going to a runoff. It could be a local county sheriff race. It could be a few of the congressionals that we've been watching. By and large, what is the best way for people to get informed about if they're even in a runoff election district?
Yeah. So the best way, hopefully, if you've got a candidate or campaign in your area, you've been hearing about it, even though we've been encouraging them to make sure to take the appropriate precautions in this coronavirus world. Hopefully, they have been reaching out to you as a voter in the district and have been phoning and texting and digital operations to do that. But the easiest way for you to find out about it is either to visit your county elections page. Your county should have a elections page up, and it should be listing those. On the Democrat side, they've got a couple. They've got their Senate district. They don't even know their Texas Senate race. They don't know who's going to challenge Senator Cornyn. So they've got a statewide one. We don't have a statewide one, but we do have some races in the Texas House and so on where we don't yet know who our nominees are. Check with your county website. That is the best way to figure out what you got going on.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, Chairman. Any last thoughts as we get ready to sign off here?
Yeah, get involved. If you're not already, sign up for 10K for 10R. Text 10K to 72,000. That is the easiest way to get involved. It is so impactful. By all means, get connected with a local club. We are working with the Young Republicans, College Republicans, Republican women's organizations. Those are also great ways to get involved. Get plugged in, get involved, and help us drive to a massive victory in November.
Excellent. I got a couple of shout outs that I forgot. First of all, happy belated birthday to State Representative Cecil Bell. He had a fun weekend celebrating one of his sons, and then his grandson had his first birthday. Go to his Facebook page and watch his grandson discovering cake for the first time. It is, first of all, adorable, but also very entertaining. But happy belated birthday to him. And then also, I don't know if you caught this, but last week I got the opportunity to sit down for an hour-long interview with Jim Wright, our Republican nominee for the Railroad Commission. So if you want to learn more about this candidate who surprised a lot of folks, were you surprised when you saw the election results on primary night?
So I'm required to stay neutral. So as someone who is required to stay neutral in those races, one of the easiest ways to do is just not dig in too much and just stay a little distanced before it happens. But I could tell there were a lot of people who were surprised. And kudos to him. From everything I heard and seen, he just put in the hard work necessary. And that's great. Yeah,
I had a great time talking to him. He is a classic Texas candidate, bull rider. He's got a lot of great lines, especially when we start to talk about, the plans that Democrats have to either get involved in our oil and gas industry or just, pull shady campaign tactics, right? The stuff that we're used to seeing by now. But if you haven't had a chance, check that out. It's on the Texas YR Facebook page. Also, you can listen to the Big Texas podcast by Texas Young Republicans. But you also should be listening to this podcast, right, Chairman?
Right.
Thank you so much for figuring out the tech on how we can be doing this. We had the remote streams, and now we're live streaming here from RPT. We'll continue to work on this, see if we can't get some better technology, some better production value. The people want it, right? I can feel it.
Absolutely. We've had really good viewership, people following along online on Facebook, on our YouTube channel. We've gotten great feedback on that. And thank you. Thank you to all of you who want to stay connected, want to make a difference in Texas. It is so important. And I tell people all the time, our volunteers are our secret weapon at the Republican Party of Texas, and it matters, and it's making a difference.
Well, you look pretty sharp. Did you go out and get a haircut as soon as everything opened up, or are you holding off? Where do you stand on?
No, I wouldn't mind checking in somewhere, but no, I haven't done anything different on the hair front in a while.
Yeah. I'm saying solidarity with our massage therapists who are still waiting to get a chance to reopen, and the bartenders, all this stuff. I'm just waiting for everything to be open, and then I'll just make a weekend of it, right? I'll go get some drinks somewhere, get a haircut, go to a tanning salon, all the things, right? Chairman, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to you for listening, tuning in, watching on Facebook, YouTube, listening on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Talk Texas. You can follow the chairman on Twitter at James Dickey. And for the latest on how we are going to keep Texas red, follow the Republican Party of Texas on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.